report. And now, here is your host, Leon Charney.
Welcome to another Leon Charney report. And what is hot this week? The museum in Brooklyn. Art. Who cared so much about art in this world until Mayor Giuliani decided, well, this is not great art, and I'm funding this museum with the city's money. So I am going to make sure that there's a statement made about it, and the world is talking about it. Literally, the world. I'm telling you, it's unbelievable. So who to bring on better than Liz Holtzman, who is, I guess, not a great advocate for Mayor Giuliani. And then for the first time, Bob McManus, who's an editorial writer for the New York Post, and you see his column. And I believe that he thinks Giuliani may have a real strong point. So, Bob, first of all, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
You think Giuliani did it because artistically he was appalled by what happened there, or might get him 6 million Catholic votes?
I think a little bit of both. I think he found, and I think quite correctly, found the exhibit to be repulsive, not just bad art, and decided that, almost instinctually decided to make a statement about it. If that happens to redound to his political benefit, so much the better. But I think that that's true of his administration. Generally speaking, over the past 5 years, he stands for something, and I think people respond positively to it.
So you're positive on Rudy Giuliani?
Oh, I mean,
as a person, as a mayor?
Both. As a senatorial candidate, I don't know, time will tell. But right now, I think he's been good for the city, and I think the city recognizes that.
We're going to bring Randy Mastro on, who used to be his first deputy mayor,
right,
and he's going to tell you why he believes like you do. But you believe already. You don't have this problem.
No, I don't know.
All right. Liz, what's going on here? Freedom of speech, constitutional issues. What is the great mayor doing?
Well, if the mayor feels offended, and many people may feel offended by this exhibit, they have an absolute 100% right to feel offended. They have a right to protest, they have a right to picket, they have a right to write to the museum. But the city doesn't have the power, once it started to fund an institution, to withdraw the money from it and to say, we're not going to fund you because we don't like this painting. Because this is what's key about democracy, is that we have to tolerate sometimes opinions that we find repugnant, disgusting,
freedom of expression,
hateful. And no one says we have to fund the arts. There's no requirement that the city pay 1 penny to fund the arts. But once it goes down that road, it can't say, we don't like this painting or we don't like that painting. And so the mayor has absolutely 100% right to say whatever he wants about this. And I can understand why he finds it offensive. And I can understand why other people find it offensive. I haven't seen it. I don't know what the artist's intentions were. But listen, a lot of people could find it offensive. It's not very nice about women. It's not very nice about, apparently, although we don't know what the artist's intentions were, religion, Christianity as a whole, Roman Catholicism, and that goes to the question also of what kind of taste or judgment the museum exercised in putting on the show. But that's one thing. We can all protest and object to that. But the government doesn't have the right, once it starts to fund art, to say, no, I don't like this, I don't like that.
Rudy is not the government. He has,
he's the mayor. He said
the city council will be involved in this.
He said he was going to stop. He was going to cut off money. He doesn't have a right to cut off the money.
This is all subject to appeal. What he's done is put an idea in play. It's subject to the courts.
No. He takes an oath. The mayor takes an oath of office, just as I took an oath when I was controller, to uphold the laws and the Constitution of the United States. He doesn't have the power. He's a smart lawyer. And Michael Hess, his corporation, is a smart lawyer. I give the mayor full credit, and I give him the full power to object with every decibel in his being.
No,
but he doesn't have the power to stop the funding. And
I think that's what's going to be resolved here, and the suits that were filed.
There's a lot of lawsuits going on, aren't there?
A lot of lawsuits. The courts will speak on this. What he has done is put an issue in play, put an idea in play.
But in a way that's Bob. But it's not putting an idea in play. you're bound by what the law is. The courts have decided this issue time and time and time again. He's bound by that. He may not like it. He may hate it. All of us may not like it, or many of us may not like it. But at some point, you have to obey the law. He's a mayor. He talks about law and order. He's subject to the law, too. You can't arbitrarily say, I don't like that painting, and I'm going to throw the museum out of its premises, and I'm going to cut off their funding.
Well, what's wrong with his premise, Liz, that he says, okay, I'm a mayor, this is my judgment, tackle me in court? What's wrong with that?
Because the law is settled on this issue. That's why. Because if the courts have already decided at time and time...
Constitutionally, you mean?
Yes.
First
you can't
Amendment?
pick... Right. The First Amendment says, once you've picked out something to fund, you said you don't have to fund it. But once you start funding it, you can't withdraw it because government can't decide which is offensive and which is not offensive. Because next time they'll find something else, you'll have another mayor who will find something else offensive, and everybody's got to go to court, spend the money, the time, and the energy. Let him protest. That's fine. He has a perfect right. He has the First Amendment right, and I'd fight to the death his right to say those things, but not to use the power of his office to cut off funding. That's
it's a judgment of the Corporation Council that the board of this museum is in violation of the lease, and this may be a charade. I don't know, but the courts will determine that. And I really don't think that what he has done here offends the Constitution.
You think he's in good faith?
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, this is the kind of guy that reacts viscerally to assaults on common sensibilities, and he's done it time and time again. Sometimes he wins, sometimes he loses, but at least this is a much more interesting city to live in than it was 5 years ago.
But Bob, I was district attorney.
I understand that.
Right, and I'm bound by the precedents. I mean, I could take your position and say, I don't care what the court said in the past. I'm going to go back and back and back and back and back. That's not how it works. You have to obey the law finally. I mean, you can challenge it, but it's called frivolous. It's called waste of time. It's called, some people might say, it's grandstanding, and also raises very serious question about, as a leader of this city, what standard he should be setting for respecting the First Amendment. There are lots of things you can do as a mayor. You have to stand up to respect the rights of diversity, the rights of different religions to be respected, and the rights of different religious beliefs. But you also have to stand up and say, look, much as I find this repugnant, there's nothing I can do about it as mayor.
Interesting
And that's what someone who's a leader has to do too, is to teach about things that people might not want to hear.
You're a lawyer.
The First Amendment
you're a lawyer,
does count.
and you come at this from a different direction than I do. I'm not a lawyer. I'm saying that among other things, the mayor is a politician, but he's also the person that the citizens of the city have elected to exercise judgment and to exercise.
Let me ask you a question, Bob, and this goes to what Liz is saying. The mayor, he gets up tomorrow morning and says, I don't like pickle factories. But it's not a big issue. It has nothing to do with value of Americans. It has nothing to do with Catholic votes. I guarantee you'll get a lot of Hasidic votes for this because the Catholics, and you should pardon me, and the right-wing Jews are practically the same on these issues. Mm-hmm. Are you telling me that viscerally he thought that this was an issue of artistic taste and he could go up against freedom of expression? Let's take an issue that would be that exciting, pickle factories on the east side or something, which maybe smell up the air or something. I don't know. I don't know the answer. She's saying something very strong.
And she has a respectable point. I'm not saying.
I want to make another point. Apparently, this artist also uses pictures of women's genitalia in this painting. So-called painting. Well, women should be offended. Why isn't the mayor standing up also and saying this is offensive to women? It's a very interesting question.
Maybe
and
hates women.
That just raises the question again about whether this is really
I think what he said is this whole exhibit is disgusting. I don't think that he was gender specific or he just said it was awful.
My point is a lot of people could take offense from this. A lot of people
what's going to happen at the end of the day?
But as mayor, I think...
What's going to happen at the end of the day? I think the courts are probably going to reverse him. But the idea will be out there. And when you have...
A lot of money.
Okay, this is New York City. I mean, at least to the appellate level.
Well, excuse me, you don't bring frivolous lawsuits. Lawyers get penalized in courts for bringing frivolous lawsuits. When the law is settled, you can't do that. And that's what this is about. And that's what I object to about the mayor. He can object to this fully. He can scream as loudly as he wants. He can protest. He can stand out there with a picket sign. whatever he wants to do, but he can't withdraw their funding. And I think for him to say he's going to do it is really a misuse of the power of his office. And I respect his opinion, but I don't respect how he's going about it.
Liz, is this going to, is this going to help him politically or hurt him?
Well, I think it's going to help him very much.
Well, people, if you took a vote in a poll in the United States about the First Amendment, the people of this country might vote it down, because the First Amendment is exactly what's involved here, which is ideas that are distasteful, ideas that are repulsive, ideas that are repugnant to some. Others might like them.
And there are
and that's what the First Amendment is about, and our democracy is about.
4.9 million enrolled Democrats in New York State, and there's 7.5 million Catholics.
Okay, so it's
I
political.
mean, I think it works. And I don't know how many...
But Leon, I want to take a point about what you're saying. I want to take a point about what you're saying. You just can't say, quote unquote, Catholics and say this is how Catholics feel, how any group feels. I mean, I think we have to respect the diversity of people, whether they're Catholic or Protestant or Jewish or whatever. Everybody can be offended when any religion is desecrated. Everybody can be offended. On the other hand, people can say, as I'm saying, the First Amendment doesn't allow the mayor to cut off funding. It allows him to object. It allows him to
well, the question on the table is whether this helps him politically or not, and I think it does. I think it helps.
She has a very tough issue here, and that is that you take a duty of office, and you shouldn't be frivolous about that. You have another issue saying that this man has his freedom to express himself, which she says he can do privately, but not take funding. Yeah, publicly, but not take public funds to help him express himself. It's a big issue. I don't know how it's going to turn out. Probably he'll be reversed. But he's brought an issue to the forefront, and it shows the danger of him, by the way.
Where were his representatives on the board? He has representatives who sit on the board of the Brooklyn Museum, just as he has representatives that sit on the board of all the cultural institutions.
Right.
Where were they?
They were out to lunch.
Well, I mean, he has to take some responsibility for that. He should have been there. If he found it so offensive, he should have had his people there notifying him, and they should have been talking to the board of the museum and saying, look, people may take offense, and not only Catholics.
I know where they were.
Whatever. People may take offense.
I know where his board members were. They were out with Randy Mastro trying to figure out why the Charter Commission said, well, we'll take the mayor's skip for a term later. So Rudy gave in on that point. I don't know the answer, but it's a huge, huge issue. And I think politically, I think Liz is probably right. A lot of people in this country would probably abrogate the First Amendment if they really could. Hillary Clinton, what's her position on this? She's repugnant. It's repugnant to her, but she's not going to take a stand. She has basically Liz's stand. Am I right?
I guess. I mean, I want to speak for her, but that's my understanding.
What I saw quoted in the paper was that she said, Peter Vallone said that, if I can remember the quote accurately, in essence, that Peter Vallone said that as a practicing Catholic, he found it
Peter
repugnant.
Vallone told it to me personally. I had breakfast with Peter Vallone, and he said to me it's repugnant to him, but your issue that it's public money, and you can't take public money to express your private views about certain things. So we'll see where it turns out, but it's an interesting issue.
But look at what the ultimate consequences are if we can allow mayors to take away funding. Take a library.
It's bad.
Take a library. There could be all kinds of books in a library that I find objectionable. There could be other books that you find are objectionable. How can we proceed that way? A democracy requires a kind of sophistication, which is we have to allow the expression of ideas that we hate.
You can take the slippery slope argument and apply it to everything. Now, I mean, I think that the idea that the next step is going to be that the New York Public Library is going to be shut down is quite frank.
What's the Post position on this? The editorial
I'm just saying
position.
that this is
New York Post. What's their position on this?
Basically, the exhibit was put on with the intent to offend, and that people should not be required. Taxpayers should not be required to have their money spent on this. But to take it one step further, we don't think that public money should be spent on the arts.
Well, there you go. Right. This is exactly where we're going.
On the arts, period?
Right.
Period.
By the way, I heard that Congress now wants to get into this. Did you hear this today?
Well, there's been non-binding resolutions passed in both the Senate and the House.
But they want to stop funding now to the arts or something. I mean, this thing is triggering.
What ultimately this does is take us exactly to where his argument is, which is to diminish public support for the arts. And I personally believe that all of us are enriched by having museums such as the Brooklyn Museum, which I've gone to many times, or the Metropolitan Museum. First of all, it brings tourists. It's important for our economic well-being in this city. People come here for the arts. We're the cultural capital of the world. So that if you want to cut off public support for the arts, we're going to cut off jobs and economic growth here and tourism and the like. But the other thing about the arts is that it teaches, it broadens, and people go to Italy to look at Michelangelo, and they go to New York to see great paintings, and they learn about different cultures, about different societies, about different religions. We can't cut ourselves off.
No, the Post is in favor of the arts, but
Well,
the
if you're
Post
not
is
going to
not
have
in
public
favor
support for
of
the arts, then we're going to shut down the Metropolitan Museum. That's public support for the arts. I mean, we're going to shut down the Metropolitan Museum. We're going to shut down the Brooklyn Museum. We're going to shut down Lincoln Center. We're going to shut down Carnegie Hall. This is all public support for the arts. And we shut down those institutions. We shut down the heart and soul of this city.
Let Bob clean it up if he can,
listen,
and then we'll bring on Randy.
the power of the purse is the power to control the creative process. And if you have this sword hanging over the artists, and then that's where a real perversion of the artistic process comes in. Listen, you can make a distinction about the economic impact of the arts, and you can work out funding formulas that to preserve infrastructure and all that. But when you start applying money to artists themselves, then you really start to apply mind control and that's just
all right, we're going to cut for a break, Bob. We'll come back. What you ought to do is send us an email. Let's take a vote on this. www.Charney Report. Tell us how you feel. It's a tough argument both ways. Liz is very expressive of constitutional rights, and Bob is expressive of Reuben Murdoch, who says, what do we need all this socialism for? Let's go back to capitalism. We'll be right back. We're back. I'm Leon Charney. We are talking politics, art, etc., etc. And now we have Randy Mastro, who's just joined us, and you know who he is. He's still chairman of the Charter Commission, which decided, I think, let's politically talking, that Mayor Giuliani will not be able to say whether Mark Green shall follow him as mayor of New York if he wins the election, because that problem will be cast for 4 years later. And Randy, as you know, was the first deputy to Rudy Giuliani, but he's a registered Democrat, so we got to get his point of view on this. The art business, you got a point of view?
Well, I think that Bob spoke eloquently on this point. What comes out of this is an important debate about the role of government and whether government funds should be used in certain ways. And I think the mayor really has had his finger on the pulse of what a lot of New Yorkers feel and a lot of Catholics feel about this kind of exhibit. But the courts will resolve these issues, but the fact of the matter is that it has really touched a nerve, and it's touched a nerve in a lot of people, a lot of New Yorkers who have said to me they appreciate the mayor speaking up on this issue and taking such a strong stand.
But Liz says if the money's been appropriated, it really should go and be funded. Is that correct?
Well, there is a technical budget issue about funding already having been appropriated in the last round of the budget and whether it can now be withheld by the mayor under those circumstances. But I believe the argument that the city is making has to do with a breach of contract, Leon, that the museum has breached its contract with the city and therefore it's not entitled to the money because of contractual breaches, and the court will sort that out. But the issues are profound, and they have reached
big issue.
The national and world stage.
What do you say about the breach of contract?
That's a fig leaf.
You're a great lawyer.
That's a fig leaf, and you know something, that's another thing. Michelangelo did these wonderful paintings in the Sistine Chapel, and I'm sure, and there were a lot of male nudes, and I think those were very offensive, and people put fig leaves over them. This is just a fig leaf argument. The fact of the matter is, the mayor had a perfect right to speak out against something that he thought was a desecration of religion.
Right.
He had a right to speak about it fully. He doesn't have a right to use the powers of his office to cut off funding for it, and the consequences are going to be very serious, particularly for New York, which is such an important cultural center of the world. It will diminish public support for the arts. Here we have the New York Post that's taken this incident and used it editorially to editorialize against public support for the arts. What that's going to do is diminish support for exactly these arts that are at the heart and soul and economy of this city.
All right, Bob?
Listen, we oppose public support of the arts in this limited sense. We think that the application of public money to the creative process is ultimately corrosive of art. It will cause artists to pull back, not to express themselves for fear of losing their funding. I think we I mean, you can make a strong economic case for funding the infrastructure, the museums, the Lincoln Center, if you'd like, without actually talking about funding the performances or the.
Bob, can I ask you a
funded.
very tough question?
Sure.
What is art?
I have the slightest idea.
What is art?
Well,
What is art?
art is a category that obviously is broadly defined, and one can say art is in the eye of the beholder. But the fact of the matter is, even under the Constitution, there are distinctions made between commercial practices and free expression, and between that which is offensive to such an extent that it's not entitled to that constitutional protection. So there are even distinctions within the First Amendment. So to say, Leon, what is art, as if anything that is denominated by any person to be art is necessarily protected by the First Amendment, is not to understand the full import of the First Amendment. However, I have to say one thing, because a criticism has been made here by Liz, that somehow this is going to have such far-reaching consequences. I've heard this argument before. When Rudy Giuliani had the courage of his convictions to speak his mind, I've heard others say, oh, the ramifications will be so far-reaching. Well, the ramifications have been that Rudy Giuliani has spoken his mind, and that has usually been to the ultimate benefit of New Yorkers. And there hasn't been a mayor in my lifetime or yours, Liz, who's been more supportive of the arts and cultural affairs than Rudy Giuliani has been. And even those cultural institutions who recently criticized him, and I have to say, it wasn't all of the cultural institutions, many chose not to, they said at the outset of their letter, they said that they wrote with regret because he had been such a strong supporter of the arts and cultural institutions.
Randy,
But they also
we don't
said-
even argue the point. When I'm trying to, Bob is absolutely correct. What is art?
Well, in the best sense,
I don't know.
art is a supreme. But I'll emphasize what Randy said. From a legal point of view, I'm not sure you can define it very easily. The
Right.
Supreme Court has had trouble defining pornography, which is an exception to the First Amendment
That's
and
absolutely
total
right.
freedom of expression.
Right.
Potter Stewart said, you know it when you see it. Art, maybe you
By
don't know
the
when
way,
you
I
see
want
it.
to tell you something funny. That's why I saw Mario Como meeting with Al Goldstein, who's the hero of the pornographic industry. I met him together. I didn't know what was going on, but maybe Mario was taking a constitutional question for him. Anyway, that's just a personal
Art is one
side.
of those. I mean, I'm not going to define it because I'm not.
It's hard. That's my point.
But it's an
we
expression.
don't know.
Yeah, but it's partly
It's
an
an
expression
expression.
of highest creative impulses of people,
And
ultimately,
very often-
and to judge whether it's good or not is a matter of
And
taste.
do we have a right to impose our standards on anybody else?
Well, I have a right in the sense
As a
I don't have to
person.
go and see an exhibit if I don't like it.
You can
And I've seen
reject
some
it.
exhibits, the
Right.
Maplethorpe exhibit. I thought it was revolting and
Right.
disgusting.
Right.
I would never recommend anyone go and see
Right.
it. On the other hand, I know that I couldn't stop the funding for it. And Jesse Helms tried to stop the funding for it and tried to stop funding for museums that had the audacity to show it, the courage, some might say, to show it. To me, that's not art. But
Let me ask you a question.
But
All of
I
you.
can't make. But I don't think that this is. But the courts will decide that it's art. And in this case, this was a serious exhibit in the sense that, I mean, I might not have wanted
But
to
let
show
me-
it, but this
let me
showed.
ask one
But this
question.
was shown in London. It had huge crowds. It made a lot of
All
money.
right, Liz, but let me ask one question. All of you. The Ku Klux Klan, a picture of the Ku Klux Klan beating up black people in a series. Is that art, or is that worse than art?
Well, I actually saw that at the New York Historical Museum a couple of years ago. They had a display of photographs from that period, and it was
Right.
powerful and compelling.
Right.
Anyway, saying that this, the image that's at issue right now had been of Martin Luther King Jr. in a way
Right.
that was seen as degrading.
It's degrading.
You would have had
Absolutely
you would have had
degrading.
an entirely different response to this.
You
The
know,
question is, should public money be
Right.
used to produce works that are so
Right.
provocative? And I would say no.
Would you produce money to give money to someone who wanted to produce art where the Ku Klux Klan was beating up black people?
Look,
I'm just giving you a wild example.
yes, of course. I've already given you an example of art that so-called art that I found repugnant.
so
and I
you're
might
right.
find
No,
this.
so your answer
But
is yes.
my answer is that once you start down the road
I
of
understand.
public
I
financing for
understand.
art, you can't stop and say, a
So
government official
you're into
can't say,
censorship already.
you're into censorship.
And
I
Randy,
have-
what do you
And
think?
the problem, though, Leon, is that the answer to this may be, and I'm not predicting dire consequences, but if you get to if the public says, well, if we have to support this, we don't want it, it may cut back public support for the arts, and I think this has a very chilling effect.
I got you. Well, what do you say about the Ku Klux Klan, this concept?
Well, I think your point is well taken, that in a lot of other contexts where there has been conduct or exhibits so offensive to a particular religious group or a particular racial group, the outcry has been swift. In this case, there's obviously in the Catholic community, already expressed by the Cardinal, a sense of outrage and revulsion. In fact, virtually every politician, and I won't put Liz in the category of a politician any longer, has said the same thing, that they find it revolting and disgusting. And I can certainly understand why. But one thing that hasn't been said here that also needs to be put on the table is that this is an exhibit of a very different kind than what you would find at most major museums in the city. Right. It's a commercial venture, a private collection of a man, Saatchi, who wants to make a lot of money and has made millions off of this collection, showing it, affiliated with an auction house that is sponsoring the event, and the Brooklyn Museum is being used as the vehicle for enhancing the value of the private collection of an individual who intends to later auction through Christie's, which is sponsoring
By the way, we had this problem in Israel.
That makes it very different than a typical exhibit to the public by our public museums.
Let me tell you.
Yes, but we have had commercial uses of our artistic endeavors. We have tobacco companies sponsoring all kinds of programming in cultural institutions. We have other commercial.
That's very different.
We also have but we are allowing our cultural institutions also to promote commercial ventures. So don't tell me this is different. It may be different in degree, but it's not different in kind.
It's completely
but the
different.
Fact of the matter
the
is
exhibition
that you
is
had
itself a commercial venture.
But
All right, we're going to wrap this up because we got to go on other issues.
Making
By the way, this happened in
about
Israel,
this.
and the 50th anniversary of Israel's democracy, with the founding of the state. The Bat Sheva dances created some kind of dance which really was offensive to the Bible, and the religious parties, the Shas party and the ultra-religious parties were offended. There was going to be a boycott. The president of Israel, Weizmann, finally got into this thing, and the ramifications were enormous. At the end, they did dance and they did show it, but you get into this issue all over the world. I mean, it doesn't stop. So I'm going to... You're for what Rudy did, obviously, right? You didn't divorce
Well,
him.
I certainly understand why he has taken the strong position
So
that he has.
you're for it?
I respect him expressing
Despite
his views
the
and
fact
fighting
that
for
you're
what
a
he believes
registered
in.
Democrat.
He's not saying
No.
he's for it. This
No.
is very
I
interesting.
know,
I'm reading
I know.
between the lines,
Well,
Randy.
Because he's got a liberal wife.
I want to be crystal clear on this point.
Yes,
that
some
I very much respect. I don't have any museums as clients. I very much respect the mayor for speaking his mind on this issue and doing what he does so well, which is to fight as hard as he can to vindicate the position that he is espousing.
Right.
In this particular instance, I think the courts will have to sort out the issues that are very complex legal issues.
So at the end of the day, it's okay what he did.
Oh, I certainly respect what he did. I certainly do.
Can't nail him. Okay, Bob,
Of course I support it, and I'm an enrolled Democrat too, by the way, just for the record.
you're a loyal Democrat?
An enrolled Democrat.
Enrolled Democrat. Liz, you know where we stand on you. We know that you're against it. It's repugnant to you. Okay, let's talk about some politics in the city. Next mayor of New York, run us around a little bit. Now, who's going to come out of this thing? Mark Green gets a head start if Giuliani wins, right? Giuliani wins, he goes to the Senate. Mark Green gets in there for 10 months. He's praying every night for Hillary, I guess, right?
Who? Mark Green?
Mark Green.
I doubt it.
Okay.
Maybe he is, but I'm not sure that he's putting his whole heart and soul in it. But I think there's no question that anyone who's an incumbent, even for a short period of time, has an advantage. I mean, even members of Congress or people get appointed to the Senate to fill out someone's unexpired term always have some small advantage. Doesn't mean they can't lose, but they have some advantage. The name recognition is there. The mayor of New York City is
By the way, your friend, I use your friend Dick Morris.
Yes.
And you're a columnist?
Columnist.
I don't know if you're related to Dick Morris.
I'm not related to Dick Morris.
He predicts that Hillary will pull out.
I don't know, he's predicted
at
that
the
for a
last
long
minute.
time.
And he predicts that she's doing all this to gain a lot of funding. Am I correct or incorrect?
That's what he's claiming.
That's what he's claiming. Does he
Funding
have
for
credibility?
what?
Well, she's collecting a lot of money, campaign money.
But you can't use the campaign money for personal purposes.
What's she going to use it for?
I think she's going to spend it on the campaign.
So
So I don't think, that's why I don't think that argument.
I disagree with Dick. I think she's going to run. Yeah, you're right, she can't use it. It's not
You can't decorate Chappaqua with that.
No, although they do have a funding problem there.
I don't understand that. Randy, you're a lawyer today. Liz, you're a lawyer. What's so hard about getting a mortgage if you put 25% equity down? Why can't he's going to have tremendous ability to earn money? Why was it so hard for him to get this mortgage? It looks silly.
You really have to ask them that question.
But doesn't it look silly the way they handle that? To bring in this guy, Terry McAuliffe?
Well, it was a political mistake, and they obviously realize it now since they're scrambling to get a new financing package.
So, do you believe that Hillary will run? You probably know her very well, don't you, Liz?
I wouldn't say I know her very well, but I certainly know
she's
her.
on her way?
And I think she took her some time to make this decision. I think she's very intrigued by it. I think the harder realities of how you win a race are probably beginning to hit her. I mean, you got to have a campaign manager. You're going to be attacked in the press every day. Everything you do is completely under scrutiny.
But
I'm
she
sure she's never
understood that before.
Yeah, but it's one thing to understand in your head, and another thing to actually have to experience it. But I personally think she's going to go forward. I mean, if I had to guess about it, that she's going to go forward. I certainly don't agree with Dick Morris that she's doing this for pecuniary reasons. She can't use the money. You cannot use the campaign money for yourself. Used to be, old days, that you could, but no more. So
you might be able to apply it to a future.
Dick Morris, by the way, the best example of First Amendment, because many times he's repugnant. Put that way you want, Bob.
We're all entitled to our judgments.
Well, Hillary, you think will run? You're an enrolled Democrat.
I think she'll run.
Would you vote for her?
No.
You're an enrolled Democrat.
Well, that doesn't mean that I'm...
You're going to vote Democrat. Okay, Randy, you think she'll win? She'll run?
I think she's going to run.
There's nobody left if she doesn't run.
I think she's going to run. While there's been some slippage in her poll numbers.
Do you have a problem because you're a Democrat and Rudy's running?
I don't have any problem at all. I'm voting for Rudy Giuliani.
They're all flipping around here.
Well, I think a lot of Democrats are going to vote for Rudy Giuliani. I think particularly north of Yonkers, a lot of Democrats are going to vote for Rudy Giuliani.
Okay, so, all right, let's cut for a break. We'll come
there
right back.
There aren't that many Democrats north of Yonkers.
We're going to talk about the mayoralty campaign. Randy is an expert. He lived at City Hall, and Liz is an expert. She lived at the Comptroller's office, and Bob witnessed it all, so we'll be right back. We're back. I'm Leon Charney. I'm talking with Liz Holtzman. You know who she is. We don't have to explain her. Bob McManus, the editorial writer from the New York Post. First time on the show, and good guest, intelligent, and enrolled Democrat, but both Republican.
That's a sign of intelligence, being an enrolled Democrat.
Decision, and Randy Mastro has been on here many times and is mourning the passing of Kenneth Starr's whatever he did for the United States and the world and the government. He's out Pepperdine. I don't know what he's doing. Let's talk about another anti-Semitic creature called Pat Buchanan, and then we'll go on to the mayoralty campaign. He writes his book that says that Hitler really didn't have to enter the West didn't have to enter the war against Hitler because it was unnecessary, that he was really going to fall. He wasn't going to take, you know the story about Pat Buchanan. He's repugnant to me, worse than Dick Morris. What do you think?
He's repugnant to me.
Okay.
Can I say more?
Sure.
He's repugnant to me, and once again, I very much respect the position that Rudy Giuliani has taken, going back to 1996, when he encouraged Republicans to reject Pat Buchanan then.
But how bad does that look for Rudy if George W. Bush, whom he supports, I believe, says, Pat, don't leave the party. We need you. We want you. And I was at the convention in Houston when he spoke before, for the second nomination of George W. Bush Sr. This guy was a racist of unbelievable. I mean, this guy was nuts.
Rudy has not made a formal endorsement in the presidential race.
But he will.
But he obviously has very positive feelings about George W. Bush and John McCain. John McCain having said that, good riddance to Pat Buchanan too. Right. It's pretty obvious why a front runner in a race would want to keep a united party, and it is not beneficial to the Republican Party to have Pat Buchanan go off to the Reform Party. He's likely to take votes away from the Republican candidate. On the other hand, if the Reform Party will have him, one has to wonder what the Reform Party is all about.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's a nothing. Bob, what do you think of it?
I think among other things, Buchanan has a profound misunderstanding of history. And this idea that Germany did not pose a threat to the West is ridiculous. And it's been that way since before the German Federation was formed in 1870, whatever it was. And of course there was a threat. Of course there was a reason for us to oppose them, quite beyond the moral questions that are raised by statements like he's made. I think he's a positive menace.
Do you print his columns from time to time?
No, we did, and I suspect that's over. But we
Under
don't
the First
now.
Amendment, though, he should be able. It's up to you people who you
Well,
want to print.
exactly. I mean, the First Amendment is not something
Doesn't
that
compel you.
requires
I agree.
people
No,
to
I
do
agree with
things.
you. But you don't print them any longer, huh?
Well, he doesn't write one any longer.
He doesn't
He
write,
stopped
right.
writing when he declared. But I suspect he
Liz,
did that.
give me your thoughts about Pat
Well,
Buchanan.
Pat Buchanan and I started having run-ins.
Do you know
So-
him, Liz?
Sure. As soon as we started hunting down Nazi war criminals in the United
Really?
States. You may not remember this, and some of your audience may not remember this, but Pat Buchanan was opposed to the effort of hunting down the Nazi war criminals who found sanctuary here and deporting them and bringing them to justice. And, you know, I used to say there wasn't a Nazi war criminal that Pat Buchanan didn't like, and now I see him coming out to defend Hitler. It's very sad.
This
It's
is
a
when you were in
sad-
Congress?
This is when I was in Congress. This was after I was in Congress because I've been working about bringing the Nazi war criminals to justice
By
for
the way,
a
he
long
also
time.
defended Demjanjuk, remember?
Well,
Of course, that was
that's
only
what he's
that was,
talking about.
but that was only one of them. He also opposed the unit. He was a strong
The Justice Department unit that
tracked down
tracked
Nazi
down
war criminals and tried to deport them from this country, and did succeed in many cases. I think over 50 people have been expelled from this country as a result of their work.
And this is
So-
one of the factors that Rudy Giuliani cited in '96,
Sure.
because when
This is-
Liz was championing that effort, Rudy Giuliani was U.S. attorney and personally handling the
right.
deportation cases,
Of Carl
and
Innes.
seeing that Carl Innes got deported.
Absolutely.
So that was something that Liz and Rudy both shared.
But she
that-
said
that,
Absolutely.
great
She
moment.
says he has private right to art. She didn't
That
say
great
no.
moment.
He has a public right
He
to
has a
his
public right to
opinion.
opinion.
But I think the
How
interesting thing
dangerous
about
is Pat
Buchanan.
Buchanan? How dangerous is this guy?
Well, I think he's dangerous in the sense that he will have, if he gets the Reform
Millions of
Party,
voters?
if he gets the Reform Party nod, he's got millions of dollars to get a message of, I think, a message that's repugnant to everyone sitting at this table.
Speaking
And,
of public funding of our
and-
senator,
but
there's
I think
public
the-
money in his campaign.
$13 million hanging around there.
But the interesting thing is, I think he could really hurt the Republican Party. And so while George W. may be doing very well in the polls now, if you have Buchanan in the race, the Democrats could
And
win.
McCain could be a sleeper there?
Well, I respect McCain an awful lot. I think what he said about Buchanan took a lot
Yeah,
of
he
courage
came
and
right out
guts. He
front.
came right out, and he said what had to be said. I mean, I may not always agree with him, but he's a man of principle, and I think voters respect that in the end. They see that, and they respect that.
How dangerous is Buchanan, Bob?
In 1999, I'm not so sure. If there were to be a substantial economic downturn, or for some reason people began to feel less secure than they do now, I think people like Pat Buchanan can pose a real danger. I mean, there's a lot of sort of residual bitterness about the
But
way
there are
the
millions of
economy has
people vote
changed.
for this guy.
Exactly. These are people who now feel threatened by issues that he articulates, NAFTA and
Yeah,
foreign
free
competition,
trade,
immigration, and this sort of thing.
Isolationism.
And if he were to, if the economy were to take a real sharp downturn, these issues become much more
You're
important,
right.
and he's positioned to exploit them.
Perot, who makes the decision at the Reform Party? Is it Perot?
Well, they have a whole system of delegate
Yeah, but that's-
selection, and in fact, the last time they had an issue like this, Ross Perot apparently had a hand-picked candidate for National Party chair, and Jesse Ventura had a hand-picked candidate, and Jesse Ventura's candidate actually won. Obviously, Ross Perot has tremendous sway over the party, and if Ross Perot is pushing the Pat Buchanan candidacy, that's a shame.
It's
That's
terrible,
a shame.
isn't it?
That's really a shame.
And the New York version of the Reform Party is the Independence Party, and that is almost 35% controlled by Lenora
Which is also
Fulani
shocking.
and Fred Newman. And then there's some other nuts. And Tom Golisano, the ostensible head of it, controls 24% of the votes on the executive committee. So who knows where that's going to go?
Wasn't she connected with Lyndon LaRoche?
Yeah, at one point. And Fred Newman and other cultists. And like she.
Does this feeling of acceptance of Buchanan by a couple of million people work its way back to militias in this country?
Look, there's people out there that are crazy, and you can find them on the internet every night. And would they organize for Pat Buchanan? I don't know, but would the impulses that he reaches out to animate militias? Yeah, I think so.
Nazi Germany. No, it is.
Take a different form.
If you read the history of Germany, you'll see what brought Germany into play: bad economics. I mean, and scapegoats. All right, let's talk about a happier thing. Freddie Ferrer, Alan Hevesy, Peter Falone. Who else we got? Fran Reiter, is she running too? Everybody's running for mayor.
And Mark Green.
Mark Green may get in on thanks to Randy Maestro. Boy, he's probably sent you flowers, I'll tell you.
He didn't. He didn't. No, he didn't do that.
Well, what happened, Randy? Tell us. You know, everybody thought that this was a pro-Giuliani, and you came on this show and protested. You said you were going to really do things that affect the city. This was not a pro-Giuliani effort.
The only mandate that I was given by the mayor, and this is so typical of him, was to look at the entire charter and make reform recommendations and do what you as a commission thought was the appropriate thing to do. And that's exactly what we did. And exactly what I pledged when I was on your show is exactly what we did. Gun-free school safety zones within 1,000 feet of every school, safety locks on all guns, making things like the Administration for Children's Services and an Organized Crime Control Commission and a Department of Public Health and Mental Hygiene Services and executive coordination of initiatives to prevent domestic violence, budget reform, fiscal responsibility by limiting year-to-year city spending increases to the rate of inflation, requiring two-thirds vote to increase taxes, holding back at least 50% of surpluses for emergency fund.
So wait a minute, what people
these are responsible things to have
and
done.
You said
So
on the
people
show.
should be voting for that.
Okay, but they were shocked at your outcome with respect. Everybody focused on
everyone
the
focused
thing.
on one issue.
Did you get a lot of response to that?
Yes, I did. I always said that this
A lot
was
of
not
flowers?
about- No. Got a lot of response. I didn't get any flowers.
What did the mayor say?
I always said that, I'll come back to that in a second. I always said that this wasn't about any one man or any one issue.
You did.
And when we went through the process of public hearings and heard from so many public officials and members of the public, because our total body of work was being overshadowed by this one issue, to ensure public confidence in what we were doing, and to see to it that there was fair and full consideration of these other proposals, which are so important to our city's future, we made the change that we did, which is the proposal to hold a special election within 60 days of a mayoral vacancy will only take effect as of January 1, 2002. I personally felt that it was fair to make this change at this time, and that was something that was warranted and could have been done, but one has to also take into account the public perception of one's work and whether there's going to be public confidence in the process. And so many people who may have had a personal stake in this but chose not to speak up on this issue, the fact of the matter is that those who did speak up said time and time again that we should not make this change before January 1, 2002.
But I think that the document embodies a lot of the mayor's policies, particularly as they regard to budgeting, in a way that is going to give the New York Times editorial board a heart attack when someone finally reads it. I basically approve of it. You know, in the context of, you have to wonder about the kind of fine-tuning.
Give me an example. How do you think it's going to...
Listen, this idea that you you need a supermajority to raise taxes, right? That's in there. Then
Yes.
you have to take half of the surplus and squirrel it away. You can't spend it on the city council would like. I think they're all terrific ideas in terms of public policy, although I know there's another side of the question as well. This is really Giuliani's charter. I mean, it may not handpick his successor, but it's his charter.
What do you think, Liz? You were on the show with Randy when he said this was going to happen. Are you impressed?
Well, I like Randy. So
She prejudged me then. She prejudged me then, and she was wrong. So I know she'll
How
want
did
to
I
admit it
prejudge-
now.
no, how
You
did I
said that
prejudge
we
you?
would definitely be doing this about Mark Reed.
No, I didn't say
and-
you would definitely. How can I predict what you would do?
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I would never.
We'll look at
predict
the
that.
videotape.
But I'm not. I would like to say I was really impressed because I like Randy, but I'm not impressed with this, and I think that this is the real danger. This product that we have is the real danger of this process that we saw, which was an abbreviated process. There should have been much more time for the public to understand it. These issues about financing. I was on the House Budget Committee, and I know Randy spent a lot of time in government, and he's very familiar with it, and I respect his views on that. It puts the city in a straitjacket. It puts the city in a straitjacket. You talk about taxes. Suppose people want to decide to put a special tax on the sale. I don't know whether we could tax that, but sale of Saturday night specials in New York City, or other kinds of handguns, or rifles, or something like that. Or a special tax on spray paint, for example, if you wanted to reduce graffiti. You'd need a supermajority. I'm talking about small taxes. Suppose you are in a recession of some kind, and you need some additional funds for something. Suppose you need to raise taxes because we've reached some sort of legal limit on bonding. We have to finish the Second Avenue subway. These may not be the world's best examples, but why do we need to put ourselves in a fiscal straitjacket? This is changing our Constitution. You don't change the Constitution without a lot of debate on issues like this. And so I think the process. Now I might
agree
have.
with the content of this.
Listen,
Right, you
wait a
can
minute.
disagree.
You got to hold for a break, then you can come back and
Oh,
give your
I need
comments.
to speak.
We'll bring you right back. This is important for if you live in New York City. If you don't live here, it's still important because, as Liz says, New York City is the mecca of the world. We'll be right back. We're back. I'm Leon Charney. We have Randy Mastro, former Deputy Mayor of New York, head of the Charter Commission, which we're speaking about now, Bob McManus, editorial writer for New York Post, and Liz Holtzman, who needs no introduction. We have about 3 minutes left. Each one's going to get 1 minute to sum up what they want to say because each of them have a lot. They're boiling over here. All right, Randy, we'll start with you. Liz said something. You want to respond.
Okay, on the subject of charter revision, every charter revision commission has been criticized for how long it took. Did it deliberate enough? Did it hold enough hearings? That's a common criticism that is not unique to our process. But the fact of the matter is that, and Bob really had the insight here, what we attempted to do in this process was to make permanent those reforms that have served our city so well in recent years. In the early 90s, we were on the verge of a financial control period. We were in such a fiscal crisis because we spent too much, we taxed too much, and
So
we
you say
killed the economy.
it was fair and important. Is that what you say?
Well, I'm saying that these reforms that have served us so well in public safety and fiscal responsibility and social responsibility need to become a permanent part of our charter.
Okay.
And you asked me what the mayor said?
Yeah.
He congratulated us for a job well done, and he supports these charter reforms.
He sent you the
And
flowers.
urges all New Yorkers to vote for
It
it.
wasn't Mark Green. It was Rudy sent you the flowers, and Donna. Bob?
I don't have a lot to add to that. I mean, there are fundamental changes in the way the city is going to govern itself in this document. I happen to approve of them because I lived through
But you
the
think
91
Liz made a good point?
I think she made a good point, and you really shouldn't be changing constitutions to do some things like the gun-free schools or
All right.
whatever that is. But I approve of
All
it,
right.
basically.
Yeah, well, I think this is like changing the Constitution of the United States. If you want to undo these changes, it's very cumbersome and difficult. Therefore, you shouldn't make them unless they're absolutely necessary. We should not be hamstringing ourselves. This is like a balanced budget amendment for the Constitution of the United States. This is a balanced budget amendment for New York City. We don't need it. And if the city gets into serious fiscal trouble and we need funding for schools or for elderly people, for kids, the money won't be there. Or mosquito spraying.
Not true. The mayor and the council can lift the
Liz,
council.
you had the
but
last
it's
word.
just- right.
You're out. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Bob, pleasure to greet you.
Yes, thank
First on the
you.
show. Randy, always fun. We will see you next week. We'll find out what is going to happen in the Middle East. We let that go for 2 weeks, and it looks like Abe Barak is on a roll. And maybe they'll be out of Lebanon within a year, and I believe the PLO and Israel are going to get together and keep going. So we'll stay tuned. We'll see you next week.